Chapter 2, Jingle Hats. The rest of the morning we did arithmetic. Arithmetic is the school word for adding and taking away. Only I couldn't even concentrate on my numbers that good, on account of May kept giving me mean looks and flopping her sweater sleeve around. Pretty soon there was a knock on the door. "Come in, please," said room 1. Mr. Jerry taught us to say that. Only I don't actually know why, because people come in anyways. The door opened very slow, and it was Mr. Toot, the music teacher. He was carrying a big brown box in his arms. It was dusty, I think, because when Mr. Toot plopped that box on the floor, Sheldon started to sneeze his head off. Sheldon is very allergic to dust particles. He's also allergic to hoagies and dairy products and nature. Mr. Scary looked at him real panicked. Then he quick picked up the tissue box and he rushed it to Sheldon's desk. But Sheldon was already wiping his nose on his shirt sleeve. "Ha! I beat you again, Mr. Scary," he said. "I beat you at that race every time I sneeze." Mr. Scary just closed his eyes. "I have told you before, Sheldon, we are not racing," he said. Sheldon laughed. And then he threw his fist in the air and he shouted, "Sheldon Potts rules!" Mr. Scary just rolled his eyes. Then he moved the dusty box farther away from Sheldon's desk, and Mr. Toot lifted the lid. I stood up to look, and wowie, wow, guess what was in there? Elf clothes! That's what. There were little green elf hats with jingle bells on their ends. Plus also, there were cute little elf vests and belts. Mr. Toot held them up for us to see. "Boys and girls, our PTO made these costumes several years ago for our holiday sing-alongs," he said. "Aren't they great? Every single first grader is going to get to wear one today." And he started passing them out. My Richie friend Lucille got hers first. And she looked at it and she made a face. "Okay, number 1, I don't wear this shade of green. And number 2, I don't wear bell hats," she said. Mr. Scary looked up at the ceiling, and then he looked at Lucy, and then he took Lucille by her hand, and he walked her into the hall. Caden, shh, Caden. And then he walked her into the hall, and she came back wearing her bell hat. And pretty soon, all of the rest of room 1 were wearing our bell hats too. And we shook our heads. And the bells jangled very jingly. "Hey, this room sounds just like a Jingle Bell sleigh," I said. Mr. Toot did a chuckle. "You're right, Junie B. Every year, one lucky class gets to wear the Jingle Bell hats. And this year, because room 1 has been so well behaved in music class, I chose you." All of the children clapped and cheered, except for not Lucille. Instead, she threw her hands in there and she shouted, "What are the odds?" And after that, she flopped her head on her desk, and she didn't come up again. Mr. Toot just ignored her. "And that's not all my good news either," he said, "because each year, the class with the bell hats gets to go on stage. And they lead the whole auditorium in singing Jingle Bells." Room 1 jumped up from our seats. "Jingle bells! Jingle bells! Yay! Yay! We're going to lead Jingle Bells!" Mr. Toot smiled. "Okay, everyone. Just to make sure that you know the words, we're going to have a short rehearsal," he said. "Rehearsal!" We shouted. "Yay! Yay! Rehearsal!" Only too bad for us, because rehearsal was nothing to shout about. We sang that dumb song a jillion times, I bet. And at first, it was kind of fun. Only then it got real boring. And so that's how come I started singing funny different words. They were funny words about Batman and Robin. I sang them loud so my friends could hear. "Jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an egg. Batmobile lost its wheel and the Joker got away." Hey! Herbert and Lenny, they laughed and laughed. and May did a gasp. Then she sprang up like a spring, and she started to tattle. Mr. Toot! Mr. Toot! Junie Jones is singing the wrong... And I quick yanked at her shirt, or her skirt. Psst, May, are you crazy? I whispered. You and I can't fight anymore, remember that? If you tattletale on me, we'll be parking ourselves at Principal's. May covered her mouth with her hands, and she sat down real fast. Oops, never mind, she said to Mr. Toot. I wiped my worried forehead. Whew, that was a close one, I said. I saved our gooses. May leaned across the aisle. You did not save our gooses, Junie B., she said. I saved our gooses. I'm the one who didn't tattle. She pointed her finger at me. But you better not be singing those bad words at the sing-along, she said. I mean it, Junie Jones. If you sing those bad words on stage, I will tell on you no matter what. I did a big breath. Robin laid an egg is not bad words, May, I said. An egg is nothing for a bird to be ashamed of. I don't care. It doesn't matter, she said. You already ruined enough today, Junie Jones. You ruined my sweater and you ruined my mood. But you're not going to ruin this sing-along too. She crossed her arms at me. Even if I get in trouble myself, I will still tell on you, she said. You can count on that, Junie Jones. After that, she leaned back in her chair, and then she brushed her hands together real smuggy. I looked at that girl. May is off of her rocker, I believe.